Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Damaged Darts. Today we're going to be doing part 1 of a 2-part series of converting a Nerf Han Solo blaster into this Nerf Han Solo DL44 blaster. Let's do this. Okay, so this is the first part of my modification process of this Star Wars Nerf Han Solo DL44 blaster. I'm going to start out by drilling out these holes on the muzzle. Okay, now what I'm going to work on next is the, now that I drilled all the holes out of the muzzle, with the drill bit going in this way, there tends to be a little bit of shavings, rough shavings on the insides here. So I'm going to take my Dremel with the sanding drum on the end, just to kind of clean up things on the inside a bit. Okay, now that I got that bit out of the way with the sanding drum on the Dremel, I'm gonna just kind of go back in with it with medium grit sandpaper, and then finish off with some fine grit sandpaper, just to kind of smooth that out. Alright, now that I've finished the drilling out the holes on the muzzle here, we're going to flip it over here and take it apart to get all the pieces prepped for painting. Alright guys, so here is what the inside of it looks like, and I always highly recommend using a camera, digital camera, or your cell phone to take some snapshots of the inside for reference. So basically you're reverse engineering this and you can put it back together properly. So I'm going to take a couple snapshots here with my cell phone. And then as you go along taking things apart, for instance, there's a little screw right here I've got to take out so I can take this whole sliding piece off. So I need all these parts separately to do a proper painting on them. And once again I took it apart, and just so I know that this goes that way, I'll take another snapshot here. The feed. Looks like this is all one piece, or is it? Oh, bingo. Put those aside, and now we'll go into the taking out the internals here very carefully, because this is the this is basically the internal clip. So like on an in-strike, you have that external clip. This one has it all built in with that whole compressed slider for the dart. So all the guts come right out of it, like so. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Over here. There's that pusher here. There's the spring. Pretty crazy. Try and keep all the parts together as best I can. That's the catch spring there. Got 2 more screws right here, here, and here. Take those off because that's connecting the other part of the slider, which I need to remove. Painting. So the next phase to get this prep for painting is we're going to use the Dremel tool with the sanding drum, a couple other sanding drum fittings I've got, and sand off the Star Wars labeling, all this, the caution labeling and this. We want to get this as realistic looking as possible, so of course the labels have got to go. Okay, now that I got the rough sanding done with the Dremel, I'm going to take some medium grit sandpaper and just go over that. Well, I tried to use this tip a little bit. It seemed to do okay around the edges, but I think it was best just to stick with the drum sander. Kind of a smaller diameter here too that might be able to do smaller spots, but best to use just a drum sander and the sandpaper. So I'm just going to stick with that to finish things out. Okay, now I'm going to, I've gone over the parts with the medium grit sandpaper. I'm going to go into the finer grit sandpaper just to smooth things out on these areas here. So here it goes. Okay, so now I've done all the sanding. Again, use my Dremel tool with the trusty dusty sanding drum first to get all the general lettering and labeling off. Then went back over it with the medium grit sandpaper. And the next, taking it down and refining it a little bit more, smoothing it out, and then finally finishing off with a finer high grit sandpaper to really smooth things out, close to just a really smooth finish to get all those streaks and stuff from sanding out of there. Pretty happy with the way this turned out. It's nice. It should be smooth to the touch with your thumb when you run across it. Not a lot of texturing and grains in there. So then when we go through, I'm going to actually start out by hitting it with an gray automotive primer over the whole thing, which should fill in any other little things, but I'm not really concerned about that, as we're going to go for a really grunged, battle-worn, banged up, scratched, dinged, chipped look, of course, to this blaster. Alright guys, now we're out here in this beautiful sunshiny day, which will help dry the paint a lot faster. We're going to start with the paint job on all these parts, and I'm going to be using this this Rust-Oleum automotive primer gray for the base coat. This tends to really bond well with the plastic and give it a good seal so the paint doesn't come off, but then it's also going to serve as that raw metal base that's going to come through on those weathered chipped parts that we're going to do on this prop build. So with that, and I've got my cup of coffee here to fuel me along the process, which happens to be a very Star Wars day. So I got my Yoda Star Wars coffee mug there. You can find that on Amazon, so if you can just click in the link down below in the description if you want this mug among others, it will be there. And again, yeah, please click on the link if you're interested in buying it. It'll help support this channel to keep creating really cool content and fun tutorials to help you build your own props. Have fun with those. I'm going to be using, for the top coat, just a cheap spray paint here, semi-gloss paint to kind of give it that powder-coated shiny look to it. One other thing I'm going to point out with you guys, if you notice, got a little overspray stenciling of one of the Nerf guns that we've done from a previous project. So my challenge to you guys is to, in the comments below, to go back, watch some of our other videos, and find out which gun this is that we did the paint mod on. Which one you think it is. We'd love to find out what you guys think. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and put this stuff out. I'm going to, first off, use a little bit of newspaper, some painter's tape, and I'm going to mask off this orange mechanism right here, because I don't want to get too much paint on this and gum up the all the mechanics in there. So I'm going to tape that off, because I'm going to pop a little bit of paint in the inside right here too, so when you put it back together you don't see any blue plastic in the seams. We want to get this as realistic as possible, so I'm going to do that, and then we're going to start hitting it with this gray automotive primer. Alright guys, I've done the automotive primer base layer right here and here. I've gotten all the nooks and crannies. I would really encourage you guys to take your time on this. This is a very important step, and get, you know, put down a layer, wait a few minutes, put down another layer, but make sure you get full coverage of all those nooks and crannies, especially in the venting area. Right here, you can get different angles and take your time to fill in those cracks. And I think I did a pretty good job of filling all that in. But make sure you get a good coverage of all this, because this is going to be your effect when you start to put that, which we're going to go over next after we put that black layer on and creating that weathered look, that chipped look. These parts are going to show underneath, so you want this thoroughly gray for that metal gray under coat there. And I took my time again around the scope. Got underneath in this little spot, just kind of gotten closer, but be cautious. Little small puffs. If you rush it, you wreck it. So take your time, be patient with it. Make sure you get a good full coat. Then I flipped the underside, and I kind of got around just spritzed it around the edges here. Okay, underside here. There's that part I taped off. I spritzed around the edges here to get that coat, because we're going to put some black on that as well. So when you put it together, you're not going to see those seams. It's going to be nice and seamless. Again, underneath here, got underneath all that. So that's all of the primer. I've got these all prepped and primed and ready to go. I just wanted to point out one other thing. In the previous, I talked about these stencils that were left over from the overspray from some of our other jobs. Well, if you go back to the earlier part of the segment, you'll see I talked about this particular one that you can't see so much since I did the primer. Well, this is to one particular gun. These ones right here are to another particular gun on the video. So two different videos. So we'd love for you guys to see who can figure out which are the right ones, which gun this is, and which gun these are from previous videos that we've done. So leave the comments below to let us know what which guns you think they are. So as you can see here, I've got some black paint on these. Well, I started out by just attempting the toothpaste method, where you just lightly brush on some toothpaste. I put it on pretty thick, as you can see here. They're pretty severely weathered. But I opted out from that. You can do that though. You can lightly use mustard or liquid latex or toothpaste on certain areas, just very lightly, very sparingly on there. Let it dry, put your paint on, and then rub it off with a rag to give it that chipped look. Well, I want some chipping, but I want more of a worn look in certain edges. So I'm going to go with putting a coat on this primed area, and then using a fine-grained sandpaper to just do the weathering on it instead. I think that's going to work best for this particular gun. So we're going to go with that. Again, guys, when you're painting this particular piece, the muzzle, make sure you pack in newspaper inside this tube, because this is where part of the dart goes through, and you don't want that gummed up with paint. So make sure you put it all the way through, thoroughly pack it with newspaper, and then seal off that end with some painter's tape before adding your paint, your primer, and your paint. Okay, so we're going to go with that, and then we're going to add all the paint here, and then well, one other thing here I'm going to point out is I'm sporting my Funko Star Wars Missing Droids tee. You can find that on the link in the description below if you like that one. And then of course there'll be plenty of other t-shirts to browse through and shop for. But please click through there and make your purchases there to help support our channel, so that we can keep creating awesome content for you guys to enjoy, and some tutorials for you guys to do your own projects. And I am staying caffeinated while I'm doing my paint job with yet another one of my Star Wars mugs. This is the Stormtrooper 1 Star Wars coffee. May the Froth be with you. You'll find a link in the description below for that, as well as the Yoda mug from the previous segment of this video. If you like those, great gift idea for all you Star Wars fans out there. But without further ado, I'm going to be laying down this. Just some cheap gloss black spray paint. All right, so let's get to painting. Alright everybody, hope you enjoyed watching part 1 of the 2-part series of converting a standard Nerf Han Solo blaster into this Nerf Han Solo DL44 blaster. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please consider doing so by clicking on the icon here. Also click on the notification bell below so you don't miss out on any of our new videos. Damaged Darts, signing off.